Hi guys, in this video we're actually going to talk all about decks. No, not really quite all about decks, but we're going to compare two decks. Basically the Aladdin deck and the bicycle deck. And why are we comparing these two decks is because this bicycle deck is very famous in the United States of America. It's found in many stalls there. And this Aladdin deck is very common in Asia, at least in Malaysia and Singapore. And so we want to know within these two decks which is the better choice and why do magicians always choose this deck? Why not any other deck? So first of all, let us go through the Aladdin deck. The Aladdin deck is quite a nice deck. If you fan it out this way, you can see the cards quite nicely aligned. But one major difference between the Aladdin deck and the bicycle deck is the texture of the card. If you are able to see it, let me try to bring it closer to camera. If you're able to see it, you can see a little gloss on the card. And actually what really happens is that this card is flat. So at a micro view, if I look at it this way, you actually see a flat so-called plane. And now how does this affect the way how we handle cards? Or how does it affect the way how these cards feel? Well, between these cards, if you put it down this way, the air is being pushed out on the sides of the cards, so there's not much of an air between. And this means that if I was supposed to spread the deck this way, there is more resistance than if there was air in between each card. So in comparison, that is one thing that you need to take note. The bicycle deck, on the other hand, if I'm able to show it to you at a micro level, you do not see it as glossy, and in fact you can see this so-called like grid kind of look. I'm not sure if you can see it there. Okay, it's a grid kind of look. And now how does this affect the deck? It affects in the sense that this deck has air pockets. Alright, it's air cushion, they call it air cushion. And this means that if I put the deck down this way, there's actually air between every single card in the deck. Alright, because there's air pockets to capture a bit of that air. And so this makes spreading the deck easier. It's very smooth. Be it whether you spread this way or whether you spread it this way. And I've actually dropped my deck on the floor a few times, yet I'm able to spread it so nicely. So that is one key feature which I feel that the bicycle deck is able to do, that the Aladdin deck, I mean you can do the same thing, but the friction is higher, and so it's not that nice to spread as compared to a bicycle deck. Now another thing is the type of card that they used to make. Well, they're actually made from the same company, but when I push the card this way, there's a greater resistance for the Aladdin deck compared to the bicycle deck. See? So with the same strength, you can see that the bicycle deck tends to bend more. Alright, the Aladdin deck is slightly tougher, while the bicycle deck is very soft. So that is another key difference between these two decks. So talking about the softness of the cards, the bicycle deck is definitely softer than the Aladdin deck, and this affects how you actually can dribble the cards. It is slightly tougher to dribble the cards if you are using somewhat Aladdin type of decks, whereas for the bicycle deck it is easier because you are able to bend the cards and it falls down quite nicely. The cards are also slightly lighter compared to the Aladdin deck. One key feature about the air pockets is that it allows you to spread very nicely, like I was saying, and this is, you know, very loved by magicians or even those gamblers. In fact, do you know that such texture of cards are actually found at casinos? Alright, not the Aladdin kind of cards, because the Aladdin cards are slightly rougher. So these kind of bicycle decks are actually the very same material which they use to make cards in casinos, and it's nice to spread, it's nice and smooth to actually just play around with even if you're peeping at a card. So it's very much loved by big gamblers or even people who perform magic. Alright, and that is one thing that you really want to know about it. So another thing about these two cards in comparison, if I put them side by side, is that you will notice that if I can do it this way, you will notice that the same number of cards are slightly thicker. Let me see if I can bring it down. Okay, the same number of cards are slightly thicker with the Aladdin deck, and this also tells us that for each card in the Aladdin deck, it is actually slightly thicker. Now to the question of why do people want to buy bicycle decks? We have already covered the many benefits that a bicycle deck has as compared to an Aladdin deck. And other reasons why people want to buy a bicycle deck is because of the variability of it. In another video, which I will be uploading, you will see a lot of variants of the bicycle deck. And this makes the deck very interesting. It's like buying a camera with which you can change many lenses. Or it's like buying a robot in which you can fix many different parts and make it nicer or really impressive. Alright? Whereas the Aladdin deck in itself, there's only, in case you do not know, 1001 and 1002. And there are only 2 variants of it. Whereas the bicycle deck has up to, I believe, 10, 15 or maybe even more variants. Yeah, probably 20 or more variants of it. And it is therefore very well liked by people, be it whether they are playing poker or a game in school or even performing magic. Well, one of the other questions that people do ask me is, where do I buy this deck? And how do I know if what I buy is made from China or from the United States of America? Basically, how do you know whether if it is pirated or if it is original? And the answer to that is not that simple, although I can say that first of all, the first question where you can buy this, you can probably buy this at magic shops. Now, why do we go to magic shops to buy this? It is just like if you want to buy camera, you want to get good advice or really professional cameras, you want to go to a professional camera shop, not just any Daiso or, I mean, Daiso is good for things, I'm not saying they're not, but I mean, if you want to buy something good, you want to go to a store that sells really good stuff in all this, right? You don't just go to NTUC or Cold Storage for that matter for a basic camera. So that's the thing, magicians or people who play cards, you know, card shops, they go for high quality cards and therefore you can find bicycle decks there. As for the Aladdin decks, which are commonly sold around Singapore, I believe it is more of a brand name. It's like, you know, since young we have always been seeing Aladdin, Aladdin, Aladdin. But if you're comparing these two together, then I would really recommend that you try out, just give a try for bicycle decks, and probably you really love bicycle decks. The cost of between these two decks are very similar. In fact, sometimes the bicycle deck is cheaper than the Aladdin deck, if you know where to find. And so you can go to magic shops, deck shops, even my company sells bicycle decks. You can get it real cheap. Now, how do you tell if this is pirated or not? One way, I mean, there's no exact way of telling it, because you know, not that I really want to say, but China is really good at making copies of things. And having said that, it also means that their decks are so similar, it is very hard to tell. There are 2 main ways which I use to tell, but well, there are many other ways. So, and it's not always accurate, right? Not always accurate. That's the main thing you have to note. The first thing is this bicycle deck cost, I mean, the cost price for me getting this bicycle deck when I import a lot is around $3 plus. Alright, so if you're going to see a deck which is a bicycle deck and you see it at like $1.50, $1, $2, or even less than my cost price or equal to my cost price, you may want to start questioning. The reason why you want to question is because you want to know why. Why is a company going to sell their decks at equal to cost price or even lower than cost price? It's good to question. The reason could be, the reason why I'm asking you to ask this question is because nobody wants to make a business and lose money, right? We want to get in things. If I get it in at, example, $3.50, I want to sell it at maybe $8, $5.50, $4. I mean, I'm still making a profit. But if I'm going to buy it in at $3.50 and I sell it at $2, I'm losing $1.50. It really means that I have not enough money and my company is probably going to close down. So that's one way you can actually start to question and ask yourself whether this is a pack of really original cards. Then the second way of seeing it is that these decks come, they come in a wrapper. If you can actually hold the wrapper, and for some decks you realize that the wrapper can move around like as though the deck is swimming in the wrapper, you know, it's really quite drastic, then you may want to start the question, why am I saying this? Is because the US playing card company has very good quality check, has very good quality deck, I have to say. In fact, in case you do not know, both these decks come from the same company. It is just that this one is shipped more to Asia and this is shipped more within the US. And so they have very good quality cards, and you rarely see, in fact I haven't really imported one in which I can see the plastic swimming in there, or rather the deck swimming in the plastic. So that's something where you really want to question. Well, another group of you actually asked me, how about the deck box? I mean, I've seen other designs out there, is it original or not original? Well, first thing first, the price doesn't change even if the box changes. It rarely changes, alright? However, you have to note that this is the old packaging. I've been using this deck for about 4 or 5 years, and the new packaging looks slightly different. But what you want to look out for is the bicycle brand. And if you're really not sure, you know, you can ask your magician friends or anyone who has been playing with these bicycle decks for a long time. They will be able to tell you which is, you know, hopefully they can tell you what's original and what's not original. Now, another way of looking at the bicycle deck, I just want to show it to you in close view, is that there are 2 angels down here. Now, why am I telling you this is because I've seen a lot of bicycle decks and the back shows an angel doing something else. I mean, it just looks very different, alright? So you just have to look at this design. It's great, and I would say that both are great decks to use, but if you really have been using, sorry, let me get the focus right. Both are great decks to use, but if you really have been using Aladdin all the time just because you find it widely spread around the market, I'm telling you that this bicycle deck costs the same price. It's worth trying. It's what I would personally recommend. It's nice to hold in your hands, nice to dribble, and definitely cards that are being used in the casino, the kind of quality, and you want to try that kind of quality. Try it once. I'm quite certain that after some time, many will start to question whether they really will prefer the bicycle deck or the Aladdin decks, but once again, it's back down to your own personal preference. Well, I'm going to upload another video on the variants of bicycle decks, and till then, we'll see you again.